Hello there and welcome to the Card Grotto. Today I'm splattering with embossing powder to create a snowy sky using the October 2020 My Monthly Hero kit from Hero Arts. So first of all, I thought I would show you the main stamp set that you get in the kit. This is such a wonderful stamp set. As you can see, it's really large, the 6x8 size, and you get loads of different elements like the birds and the deer. There's an ornament in there as well. You can create scenes inside the ornament. Lots of lovely sentiments as well. The kit also comes with frame cuts and also embossing powders and a mini ink cube of embossing ink as well. So I'm going to start off by stamping the Santa with the reindeer in his sleigh. I just thought it was such a lovely image and I thought it would work really nicely for a kind of splattery, snowy background kind of sky. So I'm going to stamp that image first onto some Dove White cardstock using Intens-ified black ink. If I'm using a stamp for the first time and it's brand new, I do like to kind of rub my fingers over it. I know it doesn't particularly look that nice, but it does tend to make the ink adhere to it a lot better. So I'm stamping that a few times just to get a really nice dark impression because it's a silhouette image. I want it to be really dark. And then I'm going to use the coordinating frame cut to cut that out. So I'm just placing that over the top, adhering that down with some low tack tape, and then I can run that through my die cutting machine and then I can just pop that out, and it's just such a beautiful image. I really love these little prancing reindeers, they're just so nice. So I'm going to set that aside and then stamp out my sentiment. So I'm just prepping some pitch black cardstock with an anti-static powder tool, just removing any of the excess powder there, and then I'm going to stamp the sentiment that says ho ho ho. I thought it worked quite nice with the Santa image, and I'm going to stamp that with clear embossing and watermark ink, and that's that little cube that you get in the kit. I have the full size, so I'm using that today, but you do get one of the little cubes in the kit as well. And then I'm going to apply some detail white embossing powder to that, and if you've seen any of my videos before, you know that I like to apply the powder 3 times, tap off the excess, funnel that back into the jar, and then if I've got any excess powder around the sentiment, I can remove that with a clean dry paintbrush, and then I can heat set that until it's completely melted. To create my background, I wanted to have a moon so that the Santa and the reindeer would kind of pop out from the background. So I have cut a circle nesting infinity die from some mask paper, and I'm just placing that in the top middle of a panel of cardstock, and that cardstock is 4 inches by 5¼ inches, and I'm going to do some ink blending, especially around that kind of what will be the moon on my panel to start with. And this is my lightest shade of ink, and this is the Thistle Reactive ink, and I'm using a blending brush here and just going around that moon. I just want to work out where my lightest shade kind of is going to end. I'm going to add quite a bit of more ink around this. So next I'm going in with the Grape Slush Reactive ink, and this is quite a lot darker in colour. I wanted a purpley sky. I particularly love the shades of purple, but I do add a little bit of blue in as well just to darken up the edges. So I'm just going around this panel here, making sure that the darkest of the colour is right on the edges, and then kind of blending up lighter towards the moon as it would kind of reflect out into the sky. So just adding quite a bit of that grape slush colour, and then I'm going to go in with the Blue Hawaii Reactive ink just to, like I said, darken up those edges a little bit, and it kind of makes it sort of more less red toned purple and more of a blue toned purple, but I do really like the colour combination with these inks. I don't particularly need the reactive properties of these inks, but I really love how they blend. They just blend really lovely and smoothly. So I'm just adding that all around the edges there. I wish that I could ink blend that quickly in real life, but I did speed it up obviously for the purposes of the video. And next, just to add even more darkness to the outside, I'm going to go in with the Intens-ified black ink, and I'm just using a kind of traditional ink blending tool for this, and I'm just adding a very small amount. So I'm it's difficult to see here in the video, but I've lifted up the front piece of the blending tool and I'm kind of blending from the inside of the foam, just so that I don't get any harsh edges. And I really think that this makes quite a big difference, this black, just on the edges of this card panel. So I'm just going around again all of the edges, and then once I've gone around once, I just bring it in a little bit further, just towards the kind of middle of the card base, and then, or the card panel I should say, and then I'm going to splatter on some Hero Art's white iridescent shimmer spray. And what I want from this is that it's going to create some shimmer obviously, but I also want to be able to create some wetness on the panel so that I can add my embossing powder on and it's going to stick to this. You could definitely do this just with water, but I thought that the shimmer spray would be really nice because in places where the embossing powder doesn't end up sticking to it, you're still going to get that really lovely shimmer as well. So I started off using the nozzle of the spray bottle, and then I went to a paintbrush because I wanted some bigger splatters. I did end up getting quite a lot of big splatters on the left hand side of the panel, and to start with, I wasn't sure if I really liked them, but as it turned out, I did quite like them in the end. So this is one of the embossing powders that you get in the kit, and this is a white shimmer, so it's kind of like a white embossing powder with like glittery goodness in it. It's just really very pretty. So I'm just placing that all over the panel and then tapping off the excess. And then it was here that I was thinking, oh, I'm not sure if I really like it. There's quite a lot of splatter on there, but I did go with it. And like I said, in the end, I do quite like it, but I do go back in afterwards and add a little bit more in to kind of even up the panel a little bit. But first, I'm just going to heat set that. And so it did take a little while just to heat set all of that embossing powder on this panel. And then I'm going in here just with some water and just adding some kind of, I'm trying to do it as randomly as possible. It didn't look as random as the other side, but trying to be as random as possible, just with some clean water here. And then I'm going to add that embossing powder over the top, and that's going to stick to that water. And then I can heat set that again, just so that it kind of looks like when Santa's on his sleigh, he's moving all of the snow about. He's kind of like as it's going in the sky, if that makes any sense whatsoever. But that was kind of my thought process. But to try and make it a little bit more random, I'm just removing some of the embossing powder before I heat set that, and then I'm going to completely heat set that until it's melted, and then I can just remove that mask in the middle for the moon. The panel is really quite warped at this point, but I am going to rectify that a little bit later. So for the moon itself, I didn't want it to be completely stark white, so I'm going in with some Copic markers. I'm using E50 and then the colourless blender, and I do a couple of layers of that, just blending out with that colourless blender. I did this recently on a Halloween card and I really loved how it turned out, so I thought I would do this again for this card here. So added that more towards the bottom right hand side, and then once I added the image on top, I felt that I wanted a little bit more on the top left, so I'm just going in with that Copic marker again. I'm just being quite rough really, just trying to fill in a little bit of colour on that side. Thankfully the moon has got a really nice rough surface, so it doesn't matter too much if the colouring is rough as well. Going in with that colourless blender just to blend that out a little bit, and then if I've blended out a bit too much, then I just go back in with that Copic marker again. And then I did run that through my die cutting machine with obviously no dies or anything like that, just to flatten that out. And then I've added some foam tape onto the back of this panel, and I'm going to place that down onto an A2 sized white card base. So that's a finished size of 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And then I can add some foam tape onto the back of the Santa and the reindeer, just using tiny little bits of foam tape there. I'm just placing them down first so that I can figure out where I want them to be, and then once I'm happy with the placement I can place them down, and I just cut that sentiment down into a strip, just using a T-square ruler there just to help me with the placement of that. Make sure that I place it on straight, and then I can remove the backings off of the foam tape here, and I can place that down on top of the moon. I really love using tweezers just to help me out with the placement, especially on these small kind of images. So just placing that down where I want it to be. And I think it looks really nice against the moon there. And then I'm just using some precision glue just to place tiny little dots of that glue just around the sentiment, and I'm adding some Lucy's Iridescent jewels there just around that sentiment. I always tend to add them around the sentiment, but I do like how it looks, and just using the embellishment wand there just to help me out with the placement. And that's the card finished. There is a lot of sparkle on the card. It's very difficult unfortunately to see on camera or in the photos, but it is really nice and sparkly in real life. And I thought I would just share with you the other card that I made using this kit that I did for the countdown, and I used the frame cut dies in the kit for this one, using the ornament and those little birds there, and then the sentiment from the main stamp set. So that was a look at the October 2020 My Monthly Hero kit from Hero Arts. Links to the products that I used will be in the description bar on YouTube and also over on my blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.